Hello and welcome back to City Planner Plays, where we are building the city of Verde Beach. And I wanted to take you on a quick balloon tour before we begin our build today. Today we are going to take care of one industry that I think is going to be very difficult to place in the city anytime soon, that being the oil industry. And I'll show you why it's going to be so difficult to place in just a moment. But first, I wanted to look at this hot air balloon because this is something I want to fix today. In the previous episode, we placed the hot air balloon in a place that I thought was going to be suitable, that I thought was going to work, and unfortunately it did not. But I've done a little bit of sandboxing, some testing, and I found a place where it works perfectly. And it's a place that was suggested in the comments. And that place is right next to the Hamilton Experience. I wish I would have put it there in the first place. We're also going to make a couple of other small tweaks to the previous build, and it's going to make everything more efficient. Without any further ado, we're going to get there. But man, can we admire the striking views of Old Town for a minute? What a great view. I would absolutely want to take this balloon tour. It is really outstanding, and it really showcases why Old Town would be a great place to live. Okay, that said, we're not here to look at Old Town right now. We are here to look at some of the new parts of the city. And I want to start out, we'll get to the new build and I'll explain that in a second, but I want to move this hot air balloon tour. There's very little I could do to make this work right, but moving it over here does just that. So we're going to move the hot air balloon tours here. I think we're going to move it over just a little bit. Give a little bit of separation. And then we'll move this main gate just to the side of it. And then I'm going to reconnect this path. And I'm going to try my best not to disturb the existing trees, knowing that that's going to be very difficult. And I'll put in the wrong kind of path so that it's interesting to look at. Just kidding. Oh, and I can't leave it like that. This is going to drive me crazy. I really can't stand when it has that weird crossing. And as a result, I go back and forth just doing everything in my power to make it not look like that. Okay, finally got it. So we'll do a little bit of landscaping to get rid of this terrible cliff that we've now created. So as always, I'm going to pull this out a little ways, or a lot of ways, and really give myself some room to taper off the edges. That looks so much better. So I really want that to be smooth and nice looking. And that's not perfect, but you kind of notice that we have that dark spot over on the other side too, so I think that's okay. So there's some weird landscaping stuff going on here. I could leave it, but we're not going to. We're going to fix this. But I do kind of want to mirror the same design and have the landscaping go all the way around this. Okay, and I'm noticing that there's a gap here in zoning. Oh, okay, that is what it is. There's nothing much I can do to fix that, but since we're already over here doing a little bit of landscaping, why don't we clean it up just a little bit? And stuff like this, I probably should try to touch up every time I'm in an area, because I didn't add in landscaping or any sorts of plantings behind some of these areas, and it really adds a lot, in my opinion. So I might try to focus on that a little bit more. So that's it. Now we've had a visitor. You can see there are people coming right off this metro station platform. They're all piling in, getting ready to take our hot air balloons. So that is wonderful. All these people. I think when we come back to this a little bit later, I'm expecting that we'll see like 40 people a week. That's, and that's nothing outlandish, but it's certainly better. The other thing I wanted to take a look at was there were some concerns about the bus line, the tourist bus line. So why don't we take a look at that? So we'll take a look at these, and they're at 20 buses. Let's take that all the way down. We just have like 4 on each route for now. We'll see how that does. I mean, there's really no one waiting at these stops. We could maybe even go a little bit less. Let's do 2. And we'll do the exact same thing with the other route. Yeah, that's a lot of vehicles. it's a little insane. Okay. So I think that's a lot better. Part of me would like to also take a look at those to make sure they're as efficient as they could be, but I'm going to hold off on that today. One more thing I want to do, and actually I should have left that up because I'm going to go right back in there to take a look at the walking tours because I mislabeled them. So let's see. Burning Palms walking tour. Sure enough, the blue line is actually the Burning Palms tour. And we've relabeled the red line, and we'll make the green line the Hamilton experience. And I do want to change those colors. Wait, what? Didn't hold. All right, let me fix this. Okay, now we have held it. That is perfect. So let's take one more look at this. 13. All right, that's much better than 0. I'm going to take that as a win. And I'll take this as a fire. We just didn't see that. All right, so what I want to talk about today is a little bit about industries. And so the industry that I want to take a look at in particular is the oil industry. So I've been thinking about where all of these industries should be located. And when you look at the oil industry, the locations where we actually have oil in the community are not places I'm overly excited about developing an oil industry. So there's one spot across the river from Lewis Shores. That might not be terrible. There's our entire beachfront, which I am not at all in favor of creating an oil industry in. And then there's this other scenic area right across from our downtown. Wonderful place for an oil industry. We are not going to do that. And then there's this area over here where I would be more okay with it, but we're not going to have that available to us until we unlock all tiles. So in light of that, I thought it might make some sense to create an oil industry without any extraction. So this is going to be kind of a fun and unique build. We are going to import all of our oil and refine it within the city. And at the same time, we're going to start to create our roadway network that will eventually connect to our airport. So to give you an idea, our airport is at some point going to be located out here. I think this is going to be a neat location for it. We will have some other support, public works infrastructure type things, and it's going to be a great location for it in the future. Unfortunately, again, we do not have that tile available to us, and I'm reluctant to put it here where we do have land available or water available to us. So we know that that's going to be available to us in short order, so why not plan a roadway network to get us there? So I want this to be an arterial. And there are really 2 ways that I could go. I could start laying a highway and going that path, and in the future, maybe that's the route I will go. But for the time being, I'm going to go a different route, and that is going to be to place a national road there, two-way highway rather. So I want this to connect up with what is currently Vine, and Vine is going to become an entirely urban road. And then off from this new arterial, we're going to have a collector. Number one, we're going to connect up Ocean Avenue, and then we're going to have a new collector that will be the basis of our new industry, because that industry is going to be located over here, kind of out of the way, and in an area that will eventually have quite a bit of traffic related to freight and things of that nature. So I do want to look at our topographic lines, see what is available to us, and make sure that I'm going to stay pretty consistent and straight. So when I'm looking, I want to preserve this for the future. I think that this line right here might be the easiest topo line to stick with, and I might just start right away. So I'm going to lay this road right now. And I'm going to let this cut across right here to kind of slope down a bit. One of the reasons I'm doing that is because I really want to keep this as straight as possible in case I do decide to upgrade this to a highway in the future. So I know that Vine comes in at about this, where the higher elevation, the dark green and the light green meet, where I want to connect up anyway. So we're going to turn this road and make a different connection. Might just terminate this altogether. So we're going to cut diagonally against this. And that will start that incline and really level it out because of how sweeping that movement was that we created there. Now this is going to be harder. I'm just going to have to take some liberties. Now we're going to disconnect this road here, and we will reconnect up. We've got some weird topographic things going on here, and we'll fix some of those in just a moment. You see it's still kind of going up there, so I think I am going to have to grade this little bit here where I'm joining the roads, which is no big deal. We're going to do a bunch of grading in just a bit. Okay, so we've got that going for us, and we've now completely severed Vine, and I don't think there's going to be a clean place to connect this, because when we look at topography, we're going up, let's see, 40 meters in not very much time. So this may just kind of end, which I don't think is the end of the world. If we do anything, it might be taking Taverna Street and finding a way to snake that up, even though that's a local road. The rules of roadway hierarchy are not really rules, they're principles, and sometimes you must deviate from them for the betterment of the city. This might be one of those occasions. Okay, so we do have that road going there now. Now this is going to kind of be weird because I'm going to make a planning, a kind of a planning collector. So here I'm just mirroring the shorefront. We're using that as our guide. And where we can, we'll go straight and then turn back around. Now there's some old industry stuff going on here. We could leave that as some sort of tourist attraction if we wanted. I don't know that this part of it in particular is all that impressive or important. That said, I don't think there's much of a bother in leaving it. Let's look at our topography. There's not much going on there. So we'll snake this around and have this cut up around. Don't know exactly where that's going to go in the future, but for now it will go there. We're also going to make this connection, and we have a rail facility here. I do not want to connect up. We are going to raise that. And then I pulled that as far back as I could to make that as smooth of a connection as I absolutely could. So now we have this new roadway, Fairview Drive, and normally I would change it, but you know what? I think this does have a pretty fair view. Can you imagine being on this road and seeing that skyline? What a great road for freight traffic, because that's really what this is going to take right now. So it's completely changed the nature of this road, and I don't know if that's for the best or not, because we do need to be able to get some of those deliveries over here. So like I mentioned, we are probably going to have some sort of local connection to this road, and I want to plan for that right off the bat. So we'll just start to kind of connect this up diagonally. And I think we might need to do some grading to make this work. And truthfully, this might be the most appropriate place to make this connection happen. And this is still going to be incredibly steep. Yeah, this is not a fun road, but it will work. So we do want to set priority here. This is a local road teeing in. We could probably make this a collector and prioritize this movement, but I think we're getting a little too overzealous with that if we do this. this will function just fine. So now I just kind of want to go through and smooth out some of these lumpies and bumpies along here and make it look a little bit more natural. Clearly a road like this would be graded beforehand in reality. In the game, not so much, but we're going to make it look like it was. So we now have an interesting problem. I've run out of soil. So we might not be doing all that much to fix this. Because I don't know that there's a lot that we can do unless I take some from near the road and try to load back up. So we are repeatedly running into not having enough fill, which is unfortunate. We'll just need to keep doing a little bit more work to get the job done. Okay, so it's not perfect, but it's looking a lot better over here. Let's take a look at the last little leg of our highway. And it's looking like my soil problems are going to be the end of me because I'm really struggling to find the soil to actually fill this in. Now, there are a couple things I could do. I could dredge the ocean. I could just kind of level out some ground. I think that's probably most likely what I'm going to do is just kind of level an area. So I will steal some soil from here and we'll deal with that in the future. Truthfully, maybe we can deal with that now a little bit. So we'll use this ridge as kind of the location for our new industry. And now we have enough soil to accomplish what we were trying to do, which is kind of just finish out this highway area. Make it nice and smooth. Okay, so now our curves are spread out really well, sweeping. The declines are not too extreme. I like it. I think we're in a good spot. I do kind of want to keep an eye on this area keep an eye on this area right here. You know, I am concerned about backups. It's certainly a thing that can become a problem. I could prioritize, yeah. No, I think we're just going to leave it for now and see what happens. Worst case scenario, we could make this an interchange. I don't think it really is necessitating that at this point. The stop sign is working just fine. We'll see what happens after we build our next area. So I want to build this little industry area near this collector. We're not going to place any buildings on the collector like we normally wouldn't. And I want to kind of form the basis of this area based on the topography available to us. So I think I'm gonna use this ridge line right here. Not ridge line, but it's kind of topographic line to form the basis of our industry. So one of the things to think about when you're creating an industry that doesn't have some of the core buildings for extracting is you can't import certain things. You can import the raw material at a cost. So you're going to want to have within close proximity a cargo, some sort of place to get cargo. And we're not going to have the pumps, even though we do have oil right here. You know, we could do it. I don't really want to. So we're going to import it. So I'm going to make some roadway connections, and then we're going to establish right off the bat some of our cargo line. And before I forget about it, we're going to use industry roads. Let's just take care of that right off the bat. I think I am going to scoot this over just a little bit for now. The main reason for that is I want to have a road coming up here that goes to the cargo, to the cargo terminal. So let's get this placed right away so we don't forget about it and lose track of it, because this is probably the most important building in the entire build. And I'm going to pause this for just a moment because we're going to reconfigure this just a bit. Okay, so the outside line is going to be my through line. And then we are going to have other lines that are available just for the cargo and for train storage. Okay, so I like that. You can get past here, you can store a train here, lots of different things that you could do here. All right, so now I need to make a connection with this road to our cargo line. All right, so that road, the reason it's diagonal is this train facility, and that's pretty standard. In fact, in some cases, in communities where you see a diagonal road that seems to come out of nowhere, it mirrored an old rail line or something like that that used to exist there that no longer does. But at one point in time, that was 100% the purpose of the existence of that diagonal road. That, or it could be an old, mill from a paper mill, or it could be an old farm road, horse trail, something like that. Every road tells a story about a community, and roads aren't randomly placed, except for now. I guess now they're randomly placed. So old roads are not randomly placed. There's a purpose. Maybe that's the best way of putting it. Okay, so now we have this. Let's form a small little grid in this area where we can work on. Well, actually, you know what? We're not going to, because we're going to let the buildings dictate what the roadway network in this area looks like. And I think that's a pretty logical way to approach an industry area. It's one of the things that I think makes industry areas unique and fun to build, is that the buildings are just so large, you can't just rely on a standard grid to make it work. Okay, so we have placed these roads, or these, we have placed these water pipes underneath the road where they belong, and we have renamed Sunset, so it is there. So we'll make this Black Gold Street. And we'll name some of these other ones in the future, and our oil industry generally in the future. In fact, I might want some help with that. So if you've got an idea for the name of this oil industry area, let me know. There is a family that is responsible for bringing this industry to town, recognizing that in this area where we are rather isolated, you gotta have the ability to refine your own oil. And if you don't, you are at the mercy of whoever is importing it in terms of costs, or whoever's supplying you. And we're still at their mercy a bit, but if we're refining it, we have the ability to produce products and control the costs a little bit. So that's what we're gonna do. All right, so we're gonna skip this building right here, the small oil pump, and skip right to this plant. So this takes oil and processes it into petroleum, but we need to be able to store the oil first. So we're going to have some oil tanks. And I didn't have the grid on for these, so I'm going to relocate it and try to keep it within the grid. And I am not able to snap to the grid. I think because I didn't start with it, it's going to make it a challenge for me, which is completely fine. So I didn't get power out here, and that's something I absolutely want to think about. So why don't we run a power line along this rail corridor, at least for the time being. Okay, very good. So we've got that going. Now we have these tanks, and these tanks can import oil, and that is exactly what we want them to do. So I want them to actually fill these up so that we can process this oil. So we're going to set that for all of these tanks. We're just going to connect this road up here and use that as kind of the basis for what we're doing. Okay, so this is very good. So I just want to make sure, are these filling up? Why don't we speed it up for a second and see what happens? Okay, and so now we saw all of that oil come in here, 10% full, 5% full, 5% full. You saw us losing lots of money. That's to be expected because we've just imported a bunch of oil that we're not doing anything with. So we want to change that. So we're going to want some sort of processing plant. So this will take that oil and turn it into petroleum. These are relatively small plants. I think we could stick one in here and maybe fence in the area around it. And let's add a little bit of landscaping around here just to jazz things up a little bit. So right here, we're refining this into petroleum. We're going to need a place to put the petroleum. So interestingly, the petroleum goes into normal warehouses. So thinking about this, and it might have been more efficient to actually take all of these and place them right here, but I'm dispersing traffic a little bit by not using this same roadway. I do think for our petroleum products, we might have a slightly bigger facility. I like the extra mass of a large facility, particularly if we aren't really going to have a lot else in this area. Okay, so we've got our new medium warehouse. We will have that be balanced, and we will put petroleum in here. Now let's get water over here. Okay. And I'm kind of just wondering, how is our district doing? 1 star, we're losing lots of money. Let's speed it up and see if things improve. We should take a look at our policies, improve logistics. Let's also, I like all of these policies. I think the improved worker safety supervision will wait on that for the time being. And let's see if things improve from a profit standpoint. First, we have a lot of these full. Could probably use to produce more petroleum. So I think we might add another processor over here as well. Or 2. And we will start out with that. And again, for a little more definition, we add a few fences. Actually, why don't we skip it here? Now that I think about it, let's just add a little bit of landscaping in some of these areas. This is always a challenge because the landscaping is going to start to look rough, but that doesn't mean that we should completely ignore it anyway. I really dislike that this particular mechanic of the vanilla game. You know, I've worked on a number of industrial properties, and we always require pretty sufficient amount of landscaping if it's a higher end industrial area, which I'm going to assume that anything in Verde Beach would be. This is a high quality city, and we want even our workers at a place like this to feel that they're in Verde Beach. Right now they feel that they're in a polluted area because these trees look awful. Okay, let's take a look at our dying area over here. Perfect. Look at that. The trees are just yellow. Just terrible to look at. All right, so this likely improved our footing a little bit in terms of production. We're importing 100% of our oil. So we're at a worker problem at this point in time, which is a challenge. And why don't we just empty this right away? We'll just export everything so that this oil industry starts making some money. Also thinking we're probably going to want some sort of workforce housing over here. So why don't we plan on that? And we'll plat a small neighborhood over here with the basic services that they would need. And we don't really have any city services over here, so we'll take care of that as well. We added another way into this area so that it does have more than one way in. It's not a cul-de-sac. And this is going to be a continuation of a fairly urban area, so we are going to use a fairly urban street network. So it's going to be dense. In order to make sure that we maximize our developable land. So this street right here is kind of functioning as a collector. We don't have any collectors in here. Well, actually, now that I've added this street through here, that's taking a lot of the pressure off. So I wasn't going to make a roadway connection. I was going to leave this to be a cul-de-sac, but I'm rethinking that right off the bat now that I see what the traffic is doing. And that's the thing about roadway hierarchy. Sometimes the traffic dictates the function of the road, and we're seeing that right here. So at this point in time, what I'm going to do is start to plan the land uses for this area. And I do think we want to have some office type uses. We'll consider this the offices for this industry area. And it'll work as kind of a nice transition between these zones. We're also going to have stores that act as a buffer in between the industry and the residences. So this will kind of be the main street in this area. Place to grab a bite to eat, place to go shopping. And then in here, we're going to have fairly dense residential uses. And you can see the demand for this is through the roof. And as a result, we're getting lots of development occurring before I even have a chance to put utilities in place. Don't tell anyone. Not exactly under the road. But it is looped, so I've got that going for me. And I will name these streets, but I'm probably not going to do that today because I do want to focus on getting this industry area working. Let's see how we're doing now. Almost at a profit. We do have some more workers, which is what we were hoping for. And I do think that we are actually going to have some higher density residential over here, but we're going to focus that on the collector. If there's ever a good place for high density residential if there is a good residential use for a collector, this would probably be it. And it is workforce housing, so I don't think it's totally off base. That said, we're going to need to mitigate this sound a little bit because there will be issues with that. Now we need to leave some room for our city services, and I think that we need to get everything in place. So when I say everything, I mean a clinic, a small fire station, a police station. We're also going to need a school and a high school, and we should have a post office. Perfect. We also should probably have a place for death care. That could become a problem in this area. Now, as things are developing, placing these buildings is getting more and more challenging. See, we have this nice little neighborhood developing around here. Of course, adding all this commercial increased our pressure. We have way more employees or jobs than jobs than workers available to fill those jobs. So that is an issue. Let's do a little bit of landscaping around here just to make sure that this place feels well lived in. So I did forget one thing, and I need to take care of that because just because this is a workforce housing area doesn't mean that the residents don't deserve parks. So this was an oversight on my behalf. I'm going to pause it just so that things don't continue to develop wildly. And I want us to fit in at least one small park, and I might even use a little bit of eminent domain, unfortunately, to accomplish this. But having something is so important. Maybe we'll have a plaza over here just to have something. And that'll help this area level up a little bit too, which is going to be pretty important. Okay, so we've certainly got issues over in this neighborhood, but this neighborhood is needed to support this industry, which is now making money. And we are well on our way to our next level up. So I do want to take a look at these traffic signals because not all of them are warranted. In particular, this one in the middle I think is pretty useless, truthfully. I also want to take a look at our roads. We have some industry roads going through here, and maybe we can dissuade some of this traffic coming through here by making sure that the industry roads are over here. I don't think that actually matters for the game, but it matters in my head. So we will do it. All right. That is very good. So I think we are moving into a very good direction with this. I kind of just want to look at the rest of the city and see what's going on. We'll come back to this in just a moment. This will level up. I noticed that there were some issues with death care, and I kind of just want to zoom in and make sure that we aren't having any more issues. I don't see any. So that makes me feel pretty good about what's going on over here. Let's take a look back at this hot air balloon 11. So maybe I was a little off base in believing 40, but this is something. I'm kind of wondering. We have a little bit of land over here. Maybe we could jazz this area up just a little bit. Add one singular entertainment use over here. Have a convenience store. It's a very convenient location. And that's going to be a good... it'll go away because of what I just did. So we're not going to get overly concerned about that. Man, the Hamilton experience is just probably one of my favorite builds in Verde Beach to date. I think it's a really fun build. Nothing will develop here, and that's okay. So I also want to take a look at transportation just to see how things are looking. And you see pressure, we're actually up to 82%. I don't know what improved, if changing and redirecting this improved things that much, but it looks like things are going okay. And this new area is not bottlenecking at all, which isn't entirely surprising. I wouldn't expect it to. It's not very big at this point in time. So to support some of the demand that we have here, I think I am going to build out the downtown one more block to the east. We will continue to use our traditional Verde Beach grid. I think I'm going to stop it there. And at this point in time, what I want to do is think about where this road goes. So this is our main, it's Bass. It's coming all the way from near Central Station, kind of looping around our government center and coming over here. And I think I might actually take Bass and connect it up right over here to our main industrial road. And this will create a connection all the way to Keller House from Bass. And I'll upgrade this after the fact. Actually, now that I think about it, I might take this road here and it'll function as that collector for us. It already is anyway, so why not formalize it? And we broke our power to this entire area. So probably should get that worked out before we keep going. Now, I would love to break power again and make this collector connection all the way through. I think I'm going to. So I'm going to need to reconfigure this just slightly to make this work. But I really think this is important for continuity's sake. So this is definitely a mulligan. There's no way in a million years that a rail company would care so much about a community that they volunteer to relocate their rail line to facilitate a better roadway connection. But we're going to pretend that this is a very caring railroad company, really cares about the community, the roadway network that's being established in the community, and as a result is voluntarily making these configuration changes. Oh, I unpaused that only to forget we have no power. So we should probably make that change before we resume things over here. Okay, now we're good to go. So I am going to upgrade Bass Street and pull that all the way through here. Oh, that's so satisfying. I like that. Let's take that name and extend that as well. And interestingly, we can't do that. We're going to end it right here at the junction, because otherwise we'd have two intersections of Sunset and Bass, because our other one is over here. So we don't want two intersections. Those are really far away. From a public safety standpoint, I imagine them saying, there's a crash at the intersection of Sunset and Bass, and ending up at the absolute wrong location. So that is undesirable. We do need to do a little bit of grading here to fix up our new road. We didn't look at topography, which is a no-no. But I know that it's not too bad in this area. Okay, and that's going to carry a decent amount of traffic through this entire area. So I want to use Vine as a bit of a transition zone. So whereas we've allowed full height buildings on Vine, everything west of Vine, everything east of Vine is going to have a high-rise ban. And eventually we're going to transition back down to those single family sorts of low-rise uses. Especially as we get towards the airport, we're going to want to make sure that that is something that we're prioritizing. We'll again use the rail line as kind of the dividing line between these new neighborhoods. And again, not going to be overly concerned about naming today. I do have a new list going. You guys provided so many great names. I'm excited to implement them, but at the same time, I want to do so thoughtfully and when it's the primary focus of what I'm doing. So I do think that we will continue the, density for a bit longer. By a bit, I mean probably quite a ways. And we're gonna want to sneak our trails through here. Unfortunately, we're using lots of eminent domain because I made one mistake, and that was zoning a bit too much in this area. And I allowed myself basically to have a wall of commercial properties that is not just unreasonable, it would completely impede all future development, which just wouldn't happen. But it's also just something that, I think it's unfortunate that I did that, because now I have to take all those buildings down. Okay, so now I'm pretty sure that for these new neighborhoods, there is no high-rise ban. Or there is a high-rise ban, but I just want to make sure, yep, we are in a good place there. And I think I'm going to fairly uniformly place residential all the way up and down this. I think where I'm not going to do it is over here, where I might have a little bit of office and then transition into some lower density residential. We'll start that density transition a little bit sooner north of the rail line. I think that that's a natural transition, and it'll make good sense for this area to start it sooner rather than later. And there's still a great deal of commercial demand, which I kind of wish it wasn't so high right now, because we need to take care of all of the demand for residential in some of these areas. But let's take a look and see if we're getting workers in here now. Yeah, we still don't. We don't have a... We're making lots of money here, though. Our worker level is the reason why we don't have a better handle on our leveling of this area. So that might just be a challenge. The one thing I could do would be to add a subway stop in here. I don't think that that's the most unreasonable thing to do, because we are going to have subway service or metro service in this area because of the airport. So I might add one quick stop in here. We use a little bit of eminent domain on this commercial property. Thank you for your property. Much appreciated. City government needed that. And in the future, we very well will add additional stops in this location, but no need to think about that right now. And in a future episode very soon, we're going to plat out an entirely new neighborhood in this area, or a few of them. And that's going to kind of be our transition into our new lightly modded build where we have the 81 tiles mod enabled. Okay, that's good. So I think I'm going to just run this line kind of pinging back and forth between this stop over here and force a transfer from this neighborhood. And we are missing some names on these lines. I will put that in the back of my mind as something that we need to do. But we will make this the black line, the oil line. So even though we just had a build where we focused on naming and detailing a little bit, I've just made a new neighborhood here with no detailing. And I've just made one subway line and realized I missed naming a variety of them. So hopefully this will get some workers to this area because we are just in desperate need of workers. We're not going to level up until we get 23 more. So that's really unfortunate. It's going to take a little while. But this industry area is working, which was the point. Let's create a quick neighborhood over here. And we'll need to label this neighborhood or rename this neighborhood in the future. But at least we have a nice little neighborhood now. We can apply policies directly to this area. So one of the things that we could do if we wanted to direct all of that industrial traffic in a particular way is to have an industrial traffic ban in the neighborhood. That might be something that's valuable in the future if it becomes a problem. Let's see if there are any other policies that could help us here. We have a workers' union in this neighborhood. I don't know if that's going to do anything here. Let me see. I don't know that it's going to. And I think over here in particular, we are going to have a policy where we have schools out. We prefer going directly into the workforce and hopefully filling some of the jobs at the oil industry, because that's certainly an issue that we're having right now. So I'm going to just let this go for about 3 minutes and we'll see what happens. Okay, and I've let this go for a while and we still don't have enough workers. So that's just going to kind of be our struggle for the time being. I think we could continue building out this neighborhood and then maybe we would see an improvement, but I can't guarantee it. So we're just going to need to keep an eye on this industry area and continue to have it build out. But for the time being, I think we're going to leave it here. I think we've made some interesting progress today, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this ends up turning out in the future. And I'm also really interested in expanding over to this next area and creating the airport, but I do want to fill in this entire area first. We're not going to cross the river until we unlock the next mod, so for anyone wondering about that, that's kind of my game plan. We're going to leave this and really focus on this area, and once this is all developed, then we will unlock more tiles. But we have other fun projects to do over here, like this, which I think is going to be a really fantastic project when it's all done. So I do want to thank you for joining me today. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please consider hitting the like button. If you are not subscribed to my channel, please consider doing so. And if you want to be notified when I make new episodes, hit that notification bell. I want to give a huge shout out to my Patreon patrons. You can see their names listed here. And I want to thank you as well. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to leave you with a brief city tour like I normally do. So check that out now.